Let's dig a little bit more into this Adrien Griffin situation. So, Danny, I'm going to say this. I don't like it. I
Why is
don't
that?
like it at all. It
Tell
feels
me.
it,
Let's hear you. Let's
it,
hear
it
you.
feels fishy. It doesn't feel right. Like, first and
Bro,
foremost,
when have ever been anything in a business not been fishy or shisty or grime? It's a business,
it
and
feels
most businesses
shisty,
have.
bruh.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear why it's shisty in your
It
eyes.
first and foremost, like Doc Rivers coming in as a consultant in December when the team is, still playing good basketball relative to their record, just didn't feel right to me at all. And when you start to, and I don't know, and obviously I have no idea what really happened, but if you have Giannis and Dame and other leaders of the team, they hear Doc Rivers is in the building consulting, then that kind of aura, that type of knowing that is really going to influence me if I'm trying to listen to Adrien Griffin, knowing Adrien Griffin
Is
is
getting
not
information,
is getting
getting consulted
information or
by somebody
getting
else.
consulted by somebody else. Like you signed, if Adrien Griffin was the head coach, then let him be the head coach. And once you start bringing in outside influences, especially those with clout, like Doc Rivers, you're only lessening the
Yeah, you're taking his
viewpoint,
legs
the
from under him.
cliche
Yeah,
of what Adrien Griffin could have when you have
handicapping him.
that type of thing happen. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree, but that's the business, bro. We've seen it so many times. It's happened to everybody who's been in it has fall victim to it, or in some sense, or some shape or form. Some more than others, other business parts, but that's how it happens sometimes. And I guess, from my understanding, it said it wasn't because of the record. Obviously, they've been winning, they've been doing well. They're 30-13. They're still top two team in the East, one of the top teams in the league. There's a respect factor, and I guess they say he lost the locker room, or guys just didn't, buy into what he was saying or teaching or his principles. That's basically what it boiled down to. And the fact that Doc being around, of course, hearing his name, but there's not many other people that you can choose from, even if you're upset. Like, even if Doc wasn't around, and you don't trust this person to win you now, he's a first time head coach, which you should have taken this into account when you hired him. He doesn't have the experience, but if you don't trust him, even if Doc wasn't around, if you were like, we don't trust him, the guys don't believe in him, they lost the rock room, even though we're winning, we don't trust him in the playoffs because when the game slows down, they don't think he's making the right adjustments. They don't believe in him. We don't like the energy around it. We got to let it go. The whole Terry Stotts situation early in the season was a red flag. There's a couple other red flags. Maybe we don't like how he's handling the staff or handling the players. All these things that we don't know about could be happening behind the scenes are the reason why. Even you let him go and Doc is not around, who do you go get?
You're
Give me
probably
some
gonna get
ideas. Give me
Doc.
some Jeff.
You're
You're gonna
probably,
get Doc.
you're probably gonna get Doc. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if he's around or not. Like, he's the best option out there that we know of. Everybody else has a job. Everybody's been taken up. Jay Kidd, Vogel, Nurse. We have to go to assistant if you're looking for somebody else. Everybody else has
Yeah.
a job. Monty, Pop, they're all signed extensions. Spo signed extension. Like, who else you get tips? There's nobody else out there you can think of, especially with a team like this. Now, if you go with a rebuild situation or a young group, now you can go to a college coach or an assistant or something like that. But win now situation, you need somebody that you can trust that's been there.
Hey man, I'm just saying.
It's
You
fishy.
could have played you could have played it out with Adrien Griffin for 1 year.
With
And then
Dame being his
and
age and Giannis, they only have but such a window. No
I'm
reason to
gonna
waste
put
time. If you have the
I'm a,
Bucks, go ahead. You have the dollars, no pun intended. If you have the Bucks to do it, to ship out coaches and keep paying coaches, go ahead and do it. The sense of urgency is now.
I'll put you on the hot seat. Steve Kerr's contract is up at the end of the season. The Warriors dynasty might be over. I would have continued with Adrien Griffin
And then waited for the better pot of coaches.
and then saw what happened in the playoffs. And if it didn't go the way I wanted, hey, Steve Kerr, your contract's up in Golden State. Why don't you come ride with us in Milwaukee? Because as good and as accomplished and as much cliche as Doc Rivers has, we got to keep it real. He has not been successful, or his teams, put it like this. That's the wrong way to say it. He has been successful, but his teams have failed consistently to meet expectations. We're not even talking about exceeding expectations.
Yes.
They have not met expectations, and they have fallen in very, very, very disturbing ways if I was a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks.
in bad fashion. But to be fair, there were a couple teams that were not fully healthy. The 2 years I was in Philly, I was hurt. I got hurt in the Atlanta series and Miami series as well. We didn't have a full health team. The Clippers haven't always been 100% healthy. Even when he had CP and they're up against Houston 3-1 or so, he strained a hamstring. There's been situations like that, and they talk about his playoff record. Now, to your point, I agree. If you don't have the sense of urgency and you can wait, it's not only Steve Kerr. You're going to have a plethora of coaches to choose from in the summertime because not only there's going to be a lot of coaches. The Washington coaches got fired as well, and they're going to look for a replacement. Obviously, this is going to start, let me say, the trend, but it's opened up the floodgates of if people are not happy with the coaches, they can fire midseason. But yeah, Steve Kerr would have been an option. I don't know if that's the guy that they wanted to choose, but I'm sure that if the other coaches don't meet their expectation, they will be fired as well, and they'll wait till the summertime. You'll have more options in the summertime if you waited. So yes, to your point, you would have a better pick of the litter if they waited 4 or 5 more months.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I would have done. You got to give Adrien Griffin a little bit of a break, in my opinion, because when they signed him up, and mind you, he did an individual interview with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo, if I remember the reporting correctly, did an individual interview with Nick Nurse and with Adrien Griffin. And overall, at the end of the day, the Bucks decided to go with Adrien Griffin. And I'm sure Giannis had some type of influence on that decision making. So if you were happy with him at that point, let's remember when Adrien Griffin was hired, Damian Lillard was not on the roster. It was Jrue Holiday. And if there was one thing about Adrien Griffin, or we believed about Adrien Griffin, was that he was instrumental in being successful with that Toronto Raptors defense. Now, it could be on him if he tried to structure the Bucks defense like the Raptors defense, because the personnel is just different. They don't have an OG Anunoby. They don't have a Pascal Siakam. They didn't have long, lanky wing interchangeable defenders. They more have rim protection with Brook Lopez being there and Giannis
they could go out and get that though.
Defender.
They have pieces they can go out and get that. They could have made decisions on adding some of those, but Jay Crowder has been hurt. He has been out. They did make some changes. They lost Grayson Allen. I'm trying to think who else might be over there. That's a lengthy, long, athletic 3-and-D guy that you might have over there. There's not many.
They don't really have any. No. Yeah.
So the wings, they're lacking on the wings. I know a guy, but there's a couple guys out there that you could probably go get. But it's tough. So given that, it's a different type of setup. They do have similar group that they had in the past, minus one guy. You should not drop that drastically defensively, and a lot of it is effort. And that's where a lot of people, that's where they're saying the respect factor and the effort, they're not giving him the respect or putting the effort that they would if it was somebody else that was coaching them. That's what most people are assuming. So yes, they could go out and get some people. They should go out. They don't have the same roster. They don't have the same defensive roster, but they do have enough to play better defense than what they are currently.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, you do what you got to do if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. I understand it. But the other reason why I would have waited too, again, there could have been more options, and Doc Rivers' failures in the playoffs are unavoidable. You can't not omit that. But also too, if you just look at the coaching pool could be better. And you never know what Adrien Griffin could have progressed to over time. It wasn't too long ago where we heard reports that LeBron James wasn't happy with Eric Spoelstra. Now we look at Eric Spoelstra as one of the best coaches in the NBA. So I don't know Adrien Griffin personally, but I feel like he got the short end of the stick. I would have waited it out. If it was going to fail, let it fail on his behalf. Because let's keep it real here, Danny. The Bucks win the first round. They get to the second round, good series, and they win. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they lose to the Boston Celtics with Doc Rivers. I would have thought the same thing might have happened with Adrien Griffin. Is he going to be able to make that much of a difference? Is he going to take them from Eastern Conference Finals to NBA Finals? And on top of that, another thing to think about.
Not. I will say Giannis, this, though. Go ahead.
But the other thing, this is the thought I really wanted to express. Damian Lillard is under contract. Giannis Antetokounmpo signed a contract extension this season. So even it's not even like Giannis could say, I want out, or Dame could say, I want out. No, you interviewed this coach, you wanted him, and you're under contract. You can't force your way out of here even if you wanted to. We're not doing that. You're Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're expected to be a star and be on the court. We're not. If Giannis,
you should have made him live with it. I get that. The front office should have made him live with it.
Yeah, but he didn't sign. If he didn't sign an extension, fine.
He obviously gets what he wants. There's a lot of things going on there that people question. Why is this there? Why is this happening? and we don't want to point out certain things, but I think the reason why, instead of making them live with it, not only do they don't want the situation they had last year where they're losing in the first round to a Miami Heat because outcoached. And I'm not saying Bud got outcoached, but possibly that's what they felt.
Mm-hmm.
They did have injuries. He had situations going on off the court. He had lost family members. People were sick. A lot of things were happening, but that's what they're presenting themselves for. And I think that's the route that they thought they were on. The path that they were on was, if we continue with this guy, we're going to get embarrassed again in the first round to a Miami Heat or a New York Knicks
Pacers
or Indiana Pacers, a team that we have no business losing to. And the Indiana Pacers were kicking their most of this year, and they did not take that lightly. So they were like, you know what? We don't trust this. Yes, it's worth, obviously, sometimes you don't need to tell you I told you so or make somebody, it's worth letting it go, trying to fix the mistake now and stop being embarrassed, not just embarrassing your star players, but embarrassing the organization, the group as a whole before it happens in playoff time. And I think that's what they thought, because the East has gotten a lot better. I was talking about this earlier on Run It Back, just how strong the East was. We listed our starters in the East, we listed our starters in the West. Like, the East team is demonstrative, is very strong, and the East team, like, not just the starters and the all-stars, but the reserves. It's like, that's going to be a bloodbath for both sides of who we're picking. The West for sure is going to be a bloodbath. But when you look at the teams that are playing well, even though the Cleveland Cavaliers had some ups and downs, injuries, they were in an 8-game winning streak. They're playing well. They're a team that can shock you in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? You can't take them lightly. Miami, you always got to respect them. They're making a move with Terry Rozier. The Knicks have been playing unbelievable since the trade of OG. You know what I'm saying? Philly is always there. So you got Nick Nurse over there, and you get out coached. If you match up with any of these teams, you never know what's going to happen with injuries. Philly could drop to 4 or 5, whatever, and maybe end up with 3. They end up matching them in the first round or second round. You get one of those exits. That's not something you can. That's not a pill you want to swallow. You know what I'm saying? By saying live with this coach because you chose him.
I will tell you this. It is going to be loud and disruptive if this Milwaukee Bucks team ends up losing before the Eastern Conference Finals and isn't competitive in the Eastern Conference Finals, because you have
100%.
You have the somewhat of the embarrassment of trading away Jrue Holiday, not realizing he was going to end up on your biggest rival in the conference. That's a flop, in my opinion. Now you've hired 3 coaches now in the span of, you've had 3 coaches under your helm for the past year. It's just not going to look. And then obviously,
if they lose in the second round, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be ugly.
It's going to be really.
But
I think they won't get it.
They said, you know what, we can make this change now. Doc for sure will get us to the second and third round. Like, we'll have at least a third round. We'll see
exit, because all the celebratory vibes and all of the respect and all of the, I wish Dame had a team, I wish he had some help that he was getting in Portland, that's dead now. He's going to have to perform, not just offensively, but defensively. Giannis being seen as the leader of the franchise for ending up having a coach fired under his helm, not just Adrien Griffin, Mike Budenholzer as well. If he doesn't perform in the playoffs, he's gonna get a lot of negative attention that he's never gotten before. And then, of course, Doc Rivers, as celebrated as he might be, we all know what happens in the playoffs with him in terms of how people treat him and they talk about him. So those 3 guys are under immense pressure that they probably never even experienced before.
For sure, 100%. Doc has experienced it. Dame is his first time experiencing it. But this change, I think, gives them a little bit of grace period. And it's like, because we made a coaching change, we're not expecting you to win this year, but for sure next year. So obviously there's pressure. I don't know, their fans are a little different than LA fans, New York fans. They're not that, they're different from Philly fans. So I'm sure the Bucks fans, they do want to win now. They want to see them at least in the Eastern Conference Finals, if not the finals. But because of the coaching change and things drastic, and still guys trying to fill each other out, get a rhythm, they're going to give them a little grace period and be like, all right, if things don't end the way it's supposed to, then like, look, they're going to blame it on the fact that it was a mid-season coaching change, which gives them some time. But like I said, if they have it 2 years in a row this summer, if they lose this summer or this spring and next spring,
and they don't win next year,
it's gonna be really loud then. But they're going to give them some grace period. The change gives them some time.
We'll see how they get treated. I'm very curious. It's interesting. I feel like for the first time in Giannis's career, you used to watch wrestling, Danny. I think Giannis might end up turning into a heel. Like, he's always been celebrated. This might be the first time where he could enter into a level of criticism and bad guy persona that he's maybe not even ready for? Because there are
Maybe.
people who are going to give him some heat.
It depends. And I just don't see it happening because Giannis has always performed. He does what he's supposed to do, whether it's regular season or playoffs, and he always shows up. Now
That's
the
true.
other guys may not. He's always been consistent. Now, obviously, his free throws have been a certain thing that they question of why they win and lose games. But his effort, unmatched, it never changes. He's going to give you a triple double. He's going to get points in the paint. He's going to draw fouls. He's going to get free throws. He's going to make plays for his teammates. It's really upon now the criticism. Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, who you guys paid and traded for Damian Lillard. Those are the guys that they're going to be looking at. Who's not performing the way they're supposed to be performing? Because we just paid you guys again and we just traded for you to play winning basketball and win this thing. And we brought you here so you could get us a championship. Which one of you guys is not doing your part?
Should be a very interesting watch for the remainder of the season out there in Milwaukee.